When we have decisions, sometimes we do it if the value is true, maybe the value is false. In the computer can be 0 and 1, but what happens if the value is between the 0 and the 1? Sometimes items, they have a matter of degree. This is the Hacker's Corner. Hi everybody, welcome back. This is the Hacker's Corner. My name is Cristian Servín. I'm an associate professor here at El Paso Community College. I teach the computer science courses along with other courses like cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and other courses. I create this program along with my producers here in order to help the community, to assist the community to inform about these emerging computing areas that we're living in right now. And hopefully this has been helpful for most of you. We really want to thank all the input, the comments, the emails that you have been sending us through email, through the EPCC YouTube channel. And we're very happy to see all these different comments, recommendations, and of course, the feedback that you have been providing to all of us through this channel. The producers, Carol, Marco, and all the staff here at EPCC, we're very, very happy for that input. Please continue sharing your comments there through the YouTube channel, and also send us an email to this email that you can see right here. We're very happy today to continue this series of artificial intelligence. As you know, we're working right now in developing this series of AI. Of course, right now is emerging this area again after all many years. And we have discussed in previous episodes how it's been impact that in society, but also in the community, but also as well in research. And as you might know, we've been developing a couple of programs here in the community. We have partnerships with the universities nearby, and of course with our partners at the independent school districts as well. So we're very, very happy and we're honored to have today our first guest speaker, Professor Dr. Vladik Kreinovich. It's an honor. He's my PhD advisor.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Professor Kreinovich, thank you so much for joining us in the Hacker's Corner in this great episode of AI.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me just talk about real quick about a couple of facts that I have for Professor Vladik Kreinovich. And of course, you can find here more information in his website. Dr. Vladik Kreinovich, as he has a list of more than many publications, especially more than 800 academic journals, which is very impressive. But also in proceedings, of course, peer-reviewed conferences, including 15 Springer books and more than 420 Springer book chapters. Recently, UTEP recognized Dr. Kreinovich as one of the faculty members named in the list of the world's top researchers. UTEP titled this the 20 UTEP faculty, including the ranking of the most widely cited researchers. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Kreinovich, he has received many different awards and recognitions across and worldwide for his apportation to the scientific community. In 2018, he received an honorary doctoral degree from the University of Ostrava, the Czech Republic. Very impressive. And thank you, Dr. Kreinovich, for joining us to the Hacker's Corner today. We're very, very happy to have you here.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
So you have been developing so much research in the areas of artificial intelligence, particularly in the fuzzy logic, interval computations, intelligent computing. Can you tell us a little bit more about this fascinating area that you are working at?
Well, thank you very much for asking this question. This is a very interesting topic. And again, my main kind of relation to artificial intelligence is through so-called fuzzy logic. So what is fuzzy logic? Professor Zadeh, who is unfortunately died a few years ago, who started this area of fuzzy logic, he was a big specialist in automatic control. He was an author of the most popular book on automatic control. And he noticed that in many cases, human beings perform much better than the automatic controllers. So how come? Well, his idea is probably there is some knowledge that they have that the automatic controllers don't have. And it's not that they're hiding, but the problem is, how do you describe this knowledge so that it will be understandable and will be implementable in the computer. For example, practically everybody in the US can drive a car. Should be not a big problem. You just ask a person how he drives a car, implement it in the computer, and here is a self-driving car. But, so suppose you're on a freeway going at a speed of 65 miles per hour. A car 30 feet in front of you slows down to 60 miles per hour. What do? Well, you brake a little bit. How a little bit? For how many milliseconds, with how many kilonewtons, whatever it is, you press the brakes? Nobody can answer that. And that's exactly the problem. So what we need is we need to incorporate this knowledge described by words of natural language into the computer systems, and that's what they started, and that's called fuzzy logic.
Computing with words, right?
Computing with words, yes.
That's interesting because how fast? Fast, tall, very hot.
Yes.
But all those are ambiguous words.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
But that's how humans we actually communicate.
Yep.
That's the challenge. So what are the main challenges that we face in these fuzzy logic transformations? Because, I mean, in the computer program, a 0 is a 0, a 1 is a 1. How does that relate with fuzzy?
Well, again, you're absolutely right. In the computer program, 0 means false, true is 1. And so to describe something in between, you use numbers from the interval 0, 1. And then, of course, comes the next step. Because if you only use, so you ask, for example, a medical doctor, to what extent is this person has a fever? Right. Because you cannot just say, okay, in the old days, God forbid, should be not repeated again, when we had COVID, the idea was if you have a temperature 38, it's fever. If you have 37.95, it's not a fever.
Right.
Of course, it doesn't make any medical sense.
Right.
The doctors, they take into account your whole thing. And so if the doctor cannot tell exactly, you're asking the doctor now to estimate on the scale of 0 to 1 with some accuracy, some number. Of course, the doctor cannot do that. Mm-hmm. The doctor can only say probably approximately 0.7 or something. Mm-hmm. And so you get another uncertainty. This is called type 2 uncertainty. And that becomes complicated. So the idea is whatever we do is very approximate models. And how do we make them more accurate? How do we take that into account? It's a complicated issue.
And that's the beautiful way to put it, as everything is being processing nowadays. Because we interact with the computers, we interact with the new AI technology, ChatGPT and whatnot. Actually, now that we touched that point for the past months, but recently everybody has talked about large language models or employing deep generative models. What is that? ChatGPT 4, DALL-E 2. We already talked about this technology in the program in the past. My question to you was two questions, because one, in computer science aspect, how this technology impact the teaching as a professors, as an instructors, and also how can impact research in computer science. And my second question is, what will be your vision in this technology impacting the society in the next 10 years and whatnot?
So teaching-wise, I'm kind of moderately optimistic, because I've been through many kind of overhyped ideas, and every time something new happens, people remember that similar things happened in the past. When the telephone appeared in the late 19th century, early 20th century, they said, okay, that's it. There will be no need for universities. You just listen over the telephone. Uh-huh. Then the radio appeared. Again, same thing.
Right.
Television appeared. There were TV programs, and they said, okay, it's the end of schools, end of universities. Everything will be via the TV. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the computers. So yes, ChatGPT. Actually, I'm from Russia originally, and in Russia we had a funny student song of the early 20th century, which I'll just sing one few lines. Absolutely, there. Please. Нам электричество ночную тьму разбудит, нам электричество пахать и сеять будет, нам электричество заменит докторов. Нажал на кнопку чик-чирик, и ты уже здоров. So electricity will light the earth, electricity will help us get our crops, electricity will replace the doctors. You press the button and you're cured. And of course it continues like that. It's a funny song that says you don't need to go to the bar. You press the button, you're drunk. You press another button, You're already in the police station where they give you a fine for being drunk in the place and they sober you. You press another button, you go home, and the wife meets you with an electric frying pan to hit you because you were drunk, and so on. So, of course, it's a joke, but that was the belief all the time. So ChatGPT is a very good tool, because what happens nowadays, for example, how in Russia we had these books by Landau and Lifshitz. These are books on theoretical physics. Both Landau and Lifshitz were great professors, but interestingly enough, Landau was such a dominating, he was a Nobel Prize winner, dominating personality, that what they told about the book is that it doesn't have a single word written by Professor Landau and doesn't have a single idea of Professor Lifshitz. So Landau was lecturing and Lifshitz was writing it down. So now you don't need a Lifshitz, you can just use ChatGPT. Many of my colleagues are already doing that. They put their ideas in a very kind of not very readable form, and ChatGPT transforms it into very smooth English. And of course, you need to correct it because ChatGPT is not exactly very knowledgeable in technical details, but it provides you a very good draft. So I think it's a very useful and a very helpful tool. Luckily for us in computer science, okay, if you need an essay on Shakespeare, ChatGPT can produce a beautiful essay and nobody will know that it's not you who wrote it. Maybe they will know because your English is too good. But if it's a technical question, ChatGPT is not yet that good at that. We tried it. You ask a question, sometimes it knows, sometimes it gives the wrong answer. But of course, eventually it will become better. And that was the dream. Nothing wrong with that. I remember talking to astronomers in the 1980s when they started using artificial intelligence. Our ultimate goal is there will be an automatic observatory. It will kind of look at the sky, process the data, and produce a paper. All you do is look at it, maybe make a few corrections, and that paper is out. And that's in effect is happening. We already have papers produced by ChatGPT. So I think it's a good. Well, people were always scared of new things. For example, when I don't know, in the old days, in the Middle Ages, if you can read and write, that's it. Your future is guaranteed. You don't need to work manually ever. You can always find a job to just write something. It may not be a very lucrative job, but you'll never die of hunger. Then, if you can remember when the word computer originally didn't mean a device, it meant a person. So when the people during the Second World War worked on the radar, on the computing, people who did computations, they were called computers because that was their job, to compute. Nowadays, you don't need computers, right? You don't need telephone operators, nothing wrong with that. Of course, many jobs are automated. I don't view it as a challenge, I view it as a help.
I think so too, because I remember that conversation where you say you just put something automatically that when I was a student. And it seems to be that was the pursuing, to have this technology. And I absolutely agree with you. I think that technology, every time that has new technology, and we're not talking about the past 10, 20 years, we're talking about since humanity has been humanity. I mean, when the fire was discovered, like, well, that's good for fire, that's good to keep everyone warm, everything, but now we can see other drawbacks, of course, but that's the beauty of technology. But I remember a couple of my colleagues that were discussing very similar example, what happened when the calculator was introduced. I mean, people may not to be lazy, but at least sometimes they speed up other stuff, but also other items, other kind of new probably techniques to solve problems appear. One of the questions was linear regression was kind of removed from the curricula because the calculators, they already have it. So ChatGPT might kind of simplify other things, or this technology. I don't want to specify with ChatGPT, it can be other technologies, but also give us a new starting point. And that's how things go and evolve through time.
Some professors were already doing that. They give a topic, they produce an essay by ChatGPT, and they ask students to criticize it and improve it.
Interesting. I mean,
and that's a very good idea.
Because you kind of get the best knowledge so far.
But
as a good starting point.
Of course, there is always a negative fact. For example, like calculators. If many years ago, if you remember in El Paso, we had blackouts. During the blackout, if you go to the store and you try to pay cash, forget it. poor guys, they could not easily calculate
without the calculator.
without the calculator,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Same thing spelling.
Of course.
When we type something, it automatically spells out. When you write something on the board, you start thinking, okay, is it tomato with a ES or with an S? You see?
Oh, Professor, yes, that's
Yeah,
actually,
right,
that's
right.
true. That happened to me all the time. So, but I absolutely agree. I mean, there's always that trade-off of that. Let me just ask you a technical question. Machine learning, right? Because right now, when the merging of AI, but also machine learning kind of go very similar. But machine learning, it might be a little bit different of this topic, but at the same, not too much. How does this relate with AI, and how does deep learning difference from machine learning itself?
Okay, so that's a very good question, because most of this ChatGPT and everything, they are based on deep learning ideas. So what is machine learning? So the problem is the following. So if you want something to fly, what do? You look at the birds have wings, and you dread something with the wings. At first they made the flapping wings that didn't work well, but now the planes have wings that don't flap. It works very well. Same thing, if you want a submarine, what do? You emulate the skin of the shark or something. Same thing, if you want something that thinks, what do? You simulate how the brain works. And the brain consists of the little cells called neurons. Everybody knows how they work, and they used a very simplified version of this neuron. And at first there was a lot of hype. People said, oh, eventually with these neural networks, we will do great things. We will write papers by themselves and everything. And then came the big crash, because it turned out that it doesn't work that well. So now, unexpectedly, that was a very unexpected thing. It's not like there is a big theoretical development. What you have is basically the network of neurons, which is very similar to the neurons in our brain. The only difference is they're much more simplified. They're using very simple formulas to go from one layer to another. And the only difference is that originally we had maybe 2 layers, 3 layers. Now they have dozens, hundreds of layers sometimes. Right. And interestingly enough, that helped. Suddenly you get the big idea. And that's usually a very typical thing. Like Newton wrote down his laws, and people were thinking, oh yeah, there are simple laws. If you just drop a rock from the Pisa Tower, yes, it can describe it. But all this variety of planets moving in different directions, comets coming, you cannot explain that. It turns out that Newton's mechanics explains perfectly everything. Same thing with neurons. Wow. I mean, I don't want to kind of there are people who believe that the complexity of the world is coming, that's called creation, it's coming from creation. But of course, many complex phenomena can be explained. And this is one of the things. It turns out that you don't need anything supernatural to describe how people think and how people become creative. Just simulating the same network of neurons, which are similar to neurons in the brain, helps you already make very creative things and creative ideas.
For me, it's fascinating, that idea. And actually, and there's many intersections with other areas and many disciplines, because that is something that it can be a different explanation. It makes a lot of sense. And not only that, you can also predict what can happen because of the data that you can have collecting. Right. And for me, it's fascinating, that aspect. And I think you cover most of these areas, because my other question is how this emerging area of machine learning has impacted society, when I think we have seen a couple of them. But you want to talk a little bit about that, and how AI is basically impact other areas in STEM or outside of STEM. It's not necessarily STEM. I mean, you already mentioned physics aspects.
Right. So basically, already we don't need people to do, or animals to do the heavy job. We have machines for doing that. We don't need people to do the calculations. We have calculators. And a lot of creative things can be done by computers. Nothing wrong with that. I have a friend, my former classmate, he works at a company. They use ChatGPT to design advertisement. So it's a first draft of advertisement. They tell what they want to see. It produces a good draft, and then you can see and you can produce it, and then somebody comes and kind of creates it. So I think society will adjust. I don't think it's a danger to the society. And yes, a lot of work that are mechanical, that can be automated, what we don't realize can be automated, will be automated. but that will leave us an opportunity to do something even more creative, more related to what we humans do best, which is something informal.
I agree. And one of the conversations that a couple of our colleagues have spoken about is especially my job. Is my job is going to be secure? Maybe these machines are going to take over. But I think you address it perfectly. I mean, it's not that they're going to take over. It's going to give you a new starting point. And there's opportunity to grow in different directions. And that's usually how technology we have seen. As a matter of fact, at EPCC, we have the XAI Institute, which, by the way, is Explainable AI. And hopefully you can tell us a little bit more, especially because we have your book here that you provide, and it's called Towards Explainable Fuzzy AI, Concepts, Paradigms, Tools, and Technique. It's a beautiful book from Springer that you published recently. And in the XAI Institute, what we're doing right now, we're starting these lectures. We have a couple of faculty there, students, and who from different areas, from different disciplines, we're interested in this area, emerging. Some of us were a little bit more technical than other ones, but also we have other aspects, for example, the philosophical implications on this, the DEI aspects as well. So we're studying that thing. Can you tell us a little bit more about Explainable Fuzzy AI or Explainable AI? I think that's, for me, is fascinating as well.
This is exactly opposite to what Zada did in the beginning, because what Zada did, he started with some informal knowledge described in the way understandable to humans and translated it into the way computers can understand.
Right.
Now we're facing another thing. You have this artificial neural networks, deep learning techniques, and so on that produce some numbers, but we don't understand how they get these numbers. And of course, the problem is if this was perfect, there would be no need maybe to explain, but these devices are not perfect. People tried them to apply, for example, in law cases and banking cases to giving a loan, and sometimes these systems make a mistake. They're not perfect.
Right.
So it would be nice if a doctor tells you something, you can ask, why are you suggesting to me this dose of the medicine? And the doctor can explain. Unfortunately, these current systems cannot yet explain how they come up with these conclusions. And so the idea is we need the opposite translation from numbers to natural language. And that's because already we have these fuzzy techniques that help in the translation between natural language and numbers. The hope is that fuzzy techniques, well, not just hope and just some experience, can help translate in the other direction as well.
I think is great because when we use some machine learning / artificial intelligence decision making for us, we trust on that aspect. Okay, that's where the machine tell us to do. They're experts, but at the same time, this black box, right? We don't have access to that. There's a set of rules, and I think we have discussed this in previous episodes about we don't know that black box. It's something that has all these rules. But sometimes those rules are what we call crisp rules. They're not modifiable. Does this techniques or this, I guess, this technique of XAI or Explainable AI helps you to soft those rules?
That may be one of the conclusions, yes. So because in the machine learning, it's not that we come up with the rules. It tries to deduce the rules from the experiments.
Right. Okay. And I think that's something that we can have more time for that to discuss in another area because that's a big area, and that's something that I share with your research area here. I know this is not very related, but eventually we receive questions from the audiences about singularity. I mean, singularity, I know it's something that happened in science fiction many years ago, and we have read a couple of novels and things like that, but people sometimes believe that what we live in right now is singularity. But can you tell us a little bit about singularity? Maybe it's not related, maybe eventually will be related, but can you give us your point of view about singularity?
Right. So to me, it's somewhat different because AI means what? We have computer systems which are almost as intelligent as humans, and eventually in some aspects they are even more intelligent. They can solve complicated problems.
Correct.
Singularity is the other way around. So instead of using our biology, which is vulnerable and everything, we put all our brains into the computer system, and that way we become practically immortal. So whatever is wrong, just like with a computer. You don't throw it away, you repair it, you replace this, you replace that, and computer can serve. So, and Singularity as of now is still somewhat science fiction-y. Maybe it will become, but right now it's in contrast to AI, which is very real life. It's what we're living now. I'm not so sure we're living in Singularity yet, but who knows? Maybe in several decades that will be a realistic thing. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, if people replace their knees, people replace their teeth, why not replace the whole body with something closer to a robot?
Why not using in that thing? And of course, that can bring conversation, an open conversation for ethical responsibilities and whatnot. But I think that's the fascinating item that we're living in right now, because a couple of decades ago, there was a theory, it was some kind of science fiction, as you mentioned. Right now, we're getting closer and closer. Bioinformatics, big advances in neuroscience as well, and it's fascinating. Final remarks about what you can aware or something that you can suggest about the community about artificial intelligence, Fuzzy, something that you might want to share?
My kind of remark is, like probably you read in the news, Elon Musk wrote a letter scaring everybody about the successes of AI. I don't think there is a reason to be scared. AI is not a threat, it's a friend. It's like when you're a little kid, you see a dog, you're thinking, oh, horrible creature, it may eat me up, it's probably a wolf. But we all know dogs are friends if you treat them properly. Same thing with AI. I think AI, I'm an optimist. AI is our friend. We need to learn how to deal with that. Sometimes we may make mistakes, but nothing wrong with that. I mean, cars are good. If the car, God forbid, accidentally hits somebody, as happened yesterday, it happens. It doesn't mean the cars are wrong. It just means we need to have some more rules and more regulations and do it better. I think AI is a good thing, and everybody should welcome it and learn how to use it. And thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing that great conversation. I want to thank Professor Kreinovich once again for joining us today in the Hackers Corner. I want to thank all of you for your support, for your comments, for your emails, for your feedback. I think we're very happy about that contributions that you providing us through emails and through all those different resources. My name is Christian Servin. Happy coding. See you next time.